Richard French, and thank you very much for joining us for this special RFL presentation dealing with the disabled. For the last several years, there has been a movement across this country to move developmentally disabled people out of state-run facilities and into homes in the community. For those who support the idea, they say it allows individuals to live a more independent life. But for family members of the most severely disabled, the idea of a community-based system can be outright terrifying. They believe it's simply not equipped to handle the serious challenges that their loved ones face. New Jersey is lagging behind the rest of the nation in making the transition to, in fact, a community system. However, at the end of last year, Governor Christie, he signed a bill creating a 5-member task force to review all 7 of New Jersey's developmental centers and to make recommendations about possible closures. Now, in the next hour, we're going to be looking at this issue from all sides, an issue that impacts society's most vulnerable residents. Now, we will take you inside one of the state's developmental centers, the sprawling Hunterdon facility, which is currently home to more than 500 people with a wide variety of serious physical and cognitive issues. We're also going to be showing you some of the fundamental differences that the kind of institutionalized setting and the community-based system that many in the state would like to transition to. Plus, we will hear from some of the stakeholders in this ongoing battle who will explain to us where New Jersey is right now and where it should be heading in the years ahead. So, who are the people at the very heart of this issue? Well, in New Jersey, there is an estimated 40,000 developmentally disabled adults. Their impairments, they run across a very broad spectrum, including intellectual disabilities like autism and Down syndrome to debilitating physical issues like epilepsy and cerebral palsy. Currently, an estimated 2,500 people live in the state's 7 developmental centers, and another 12,000 live in group homes or other independent apartments with varying levels of support. 27,000 people live at home where they are being cared for, and in many cases by aging parents. And finally, there are another 8,000 people in the state who are on waiting lists for services. So here's the question. What is life like inside one of the state's developmental centers? Well, we were recently granted wide access to one of those facilities located in Hunterdon County. While some use words like institutional and warehousing to describe centers like the one you'll see, we found something quite different. A dedicated staff, many who have worked at Hunterdon for decades. Family members that raise money and provide support when the state is unable to do so, and a loving and a supporting environment for the clients, as they call them, who call Hunterdon home.
Oh, Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree.
Kent Joyner is 50 years old and severely developmentally disabled. For his entire adult life, he has lived at the Hunterdon Developmental Center. His sister Sherry says she remembers when he was a teenager and their parents could no longer control him. That's when they made the difficult decision to send him to Hunterdon.
As much as it pained my parents at the time to have to send their son to away from home, but you know, it was clearly the right thing to do, where he would get the type of care on a day-to-day basis around the clock.
Ken is one of the more than 500 people, or clients as they're called, that live at Hunterdon. Gus Wall, he has been head of the facility for more than a quarter of a century. Gus, I saw that of every 10 patients, 9 are described as profoundly disabled. Explain to the general audience what that means.
It means they function between the 0 and 2-year level, and it means they're completely dependent on care. They have to be dressed, they have to be bathed, they have to be toileted, they have to be fed in a special way. It takes a lot of care from A to Z to care for that type person.
The facility has a full-time medical staff, including 8 doctors, 135 nurses, and 2 dentists. Gus says that having that kind of staff makes it easier to care for residents, many of whom are easily upset by a simple change of scenery, let alone a trip to a strange hospital or doctor's office.
We deal with a lot of medical issues that 20 years ago we farmed out to a hospital or a nursing home. But we saw the issues coming and we start training our medical staff. For example, we We had all our nurses IV certified. We hired respiratory therapists. We hired other additional medical personnel to meet the client's needs, because we like to give the treatments and the medical care they need here, because it's a very traumatic affair for a profoundly retarded person to wind up in a strange hospital with strange people. So we've really worked hard to be able to provide all the medical and nursing service here, and I think we've done a pretty good job with it.
The aging Hunterdon campus, which opened in 1969, looks something like a large series of schoolhouses where patients live in dorm-like settings. Residents, they receive around-the-clock care, and they participate in activities that match their abilities, from arts and crafts and poetry.
So we're going to write a poem about the snowman, because when we looked at the calendar, we just loved that snowman so much that we have to write a poem about it.
To a classroom setting for those who can learn simple tasks like counting change. If they have the ability to work, clients have simple supervised jobs both on and off campus. Jerome, who has lived at Hunterdon for 15 years, takes part in a recycling program, cleaning and crushing aluminum soda cans. The work, the team says, gives him a sense of pride.
I understand Jerome's been here for about 15 years, and he's made a lot of progress from when he first got here to where he is now. Is that right?
Yes, he has. He's come a long way. When he first got here, he wouldn't have been able to go into the community as he does now and have a job and so forth. So he has come a long way.
Now, the way it's set up, you're or someone like you's with these patients all the time?
Yeah, so I'm basically like a job coach. I'm here to support them and to help them out.
Caring for this population is not cheap. The state of New Jersey says the cost is nearly $260,000 per resident per year. That's nearly $500 million annually, and more than a third of the Division of Developmental Disabilities' total operating budget. Advocates for a community-based system believe that the only solution is to close some institutions and use the money to improve group homes. They also say that many of the people who currently live in developmental centers, they would thrive in group homes, an argument that Cindy Bartman and other family members could not disagree with strongly enough.
We know that the community works for some. One size truly does not fit all.
Cindy is the president of the Association for the Hunterdon Developmental Center. Her brother Cliff, he moved into Hunterdon 42 years ago at the age of 6. He has Down syndrome.
Are you worried that if the doors closed at Hunterdon and he was put in a community center, are you worried what happens next?
Of course I'm worried what happens next. He's coming to an age where those with Down syndrome are oftentimes develop Alzheimer's disease. And for somebody that has severe and profound intellectual disabilities, to couple that with another debilitating, intellectually robbing disease, such as Alzheimer's, is inconceivable for that to happen, though I think if that were to happen for my two Clifford, though I hope to God that it wouldn't, in a place such as Hunterdon Developmental Center, where they have all of the supports and services that are necessary to keep him healthy and happy and live a full and good life. You know, we really don't know what we would do without places like this.
You've heard the talk, opponents or proponents of moving, shuttering places like Hunterdon and going to community centers say these places are warehouses, and the patients here are pretty much numbers, and that they're just tended to, they're not allowed to flourish. You put them in a community center and somebody like Kent, he'll all of a sudden blossom.
Yeah, sorry for that, but it's almost laughable to me, because clearly every client, and you know, if they're here in a developmental center, has individual needs.
You're worried what would happen to Kent?
Yes, I would. It's unfathomable to me that they would even consider moving a client like my brother into a community center where there's no, I guess, supports for the type that support that he gets here.
That support is provided by people like Bill Steiner, a recreation supervisor. Like many of the employees at Hunterdon, Bill has been working here for 30 years.
There's a lot of good days. They just, you know, we can learn more from the clients sometimes than they can, you know, than they learn from us. I mean, they're innocent, and they have just a sense of the way they love, they unconditional love. It's just, they're just wonderful to work with. It's been a blessing, you know, for my life.
People may not put this artfully, but critics of Hunterdon's will say, hey, there's a cheaper way to do this. You're warehousing people in these facilities when, face it, if you put them in a community center, they'll blossom here all of a sudden.
I think the clients are happy here, and I think their parents are happy.
Do you have a gut as to what the final resolution is going to be?
I think in most situations like this, there's compromise. And I think that they'll downsize some of the developmental centers to smaller populations, and maybe close one or two in the long run. But I think the developmental centers will always be a part of the system.
So now you've seen what life is like inside of one of the state's developmental centers. But there are those who believe that the developmentally disabled can and should live in regular homes like the rest of the American population. Well, coming up next, we're going to take a look inside a community residence. You'll get to see for yourself. We'll be right back.